the question that you always get, right, is it a good time to buy? Is it a good time to buy? And the answer literally is, if you can afford it, absolutely. If it's what you need, absolutely. But if you can't, no. It's not the right time to buy. And it would I would feel horrible putting somebody in a house knowing that they can't afford it.
Welcome. Bienvenidos, mi raza. Este es el segundo episodio. This is the second episode of the Paisano A Paisano podcast. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. You have me as your host, Erik, Raul, and Angel. And today we're going to be diving a little bit into the real estate market. We're going to do a real estate check-in, go through some real estate stories, and then by the end we'll finish it off by talking about what we see the market doing coming up. So let's get started.
It's a good topic because of what the market's doing right now, guys. So that's kind of why we wanted to talk about this topic. But overall, I guess, we work in different sides of the market. I know that we work with a lot of CHAFA, first-time home buyer. We work with a lot of move-up buyer. You're doing a lot of commercial this year, So I guess we kind of break it down piece by piece, right? Right now, CHAFA, I know you wanted to talk about that, Angel. So what are you seeing?
Yeah, no. Well, I think right now, like what we're seeing a lot of is sellers. Homes are still selling, but I think, some homes tend to take a little bit longer to sell, right? So when we take buyers out to look at properties, we're able to actually secure a lot of these CHAFA deals and CHAFA is a down payment assistance program, right? Where you can get a second mortgage to help with your down payment and part of your closing costs. The remaining closing costs can be covered by the seller, right? So,
$1,000 investment.
Yeah, you can buy with as little as $1,000 out of pocket. And so, yeah, right now I have 4 properties under contract that are all CHAFA, and all 4 of those buyers are paying $1,000 out of pocket because we got the sellers to pay the difference of the closing costs.
Break that down. Give us an example so that people watching can kind of get a better idea of what that really means. Because it's not like we're going to let you borrow down payment, we're going to let you borrow closing costs, and you're only going to need $1,000. That's not how it is. It's actually how we negotiated it for that to happen. So break it down in an example.
Yeah. So let's say, if it's a $400,000 home, and you're buying with an FHA loan, usually you'd be paying about 3.5%, right? Down payment, and then your closing costs. It depends. It can vary, right? But you're looking at maybe 2% in closing costs with CHAFA because there's additional funds that you need to pay to get the CHAFA loan. But CHAFA usually will lend you up to 4% if it's the second. There's a second loan program where you can get 4%. Also, if you're a first generation home buyer, meaning your parents have never bought, you can get up to $25,000. Right,
that's actually a good program.
Yeah, and that one's a really good program because the rate's it's pretty competitive. It's slightly above the normal FHA rate, but
we are not lenders.
Yeah, we're not lenders.
Just clarifying,
right? But yeah, no. Basically, they give you a second mortgage that you don't make payments on. You never have interest on that second mortgage either, right? So if they let you borrow $15,000. And you have the loan for 10 years. After 10 years, you're going to pay back that $15,000. You're not going to accrue interest on that second mortgage. And basically, let's say you get 4% on a $400,000 home. That's $16,000, right? And let's say what's left over after everything is still $8,000, right? You still have to pay $8,000 out of pocket to basically pay that 3.5% and the 2% in closing costs. If we can get the sellers to cover that $8,000, then really all you're paying is $1,000 out of pocket. You do have to pay at least $1,000, but yeah, I mean, it's basically just a way to get into a home for less money, and it's nice because you don't make payments on that second mortgage. And I know you've done a lot of CHAFA too, right, Raul?
Oh, CHAFA, yeah, I've done a lot of CHAFA. I love working with CHAFA. I honestly, I've had good experiences, and I think it's gotten a lot easier over the years too. Like, it's more known, it's more accessible, and it's something that here's the thing is that, and the way that I always kind of, even in this market, the way I still explain to a lot of clients is, if you're going to be using CHAFA, it's great to lower the amount of money. You want to stay liquid, or you don't have that much in savings, it's absolutely a great option. But if you have the option to put the money down, obviously the better rate, that does help a lot. But right now in this market, that's the thing, is that if we were looking at 21, 22, we were not able to negotiate a penny in closing costs from anybody. Yeah. If you ask for a penny from the seller to be paid, it's like you just pretty much said that you're not going to get the offer, right? That's literally what happened. Do you guys remember that market? That market was 21, 2020 through 22.
And that's where we
not
bought our
like
homes,
that
right?
market at all, man. Like
No.
some people, I think, really enjoyed it because you could just put a sign for sale and you would have 10 offers the next day, right? And that was great. I think like if you do a lot of like listings and stuff, but it was just unrealistic, and it got like out of control very quickly. And unfortunately, there was a lot of buyers that even well qualified, even with, their own down payments and all of that, were still losing. Like I had a client that I showed him, I kid you not, like at least 100 houses, at least, in maybe like a span of 3 or 4 months. So, I mean, we were looking at 10 plus homes a week.
How many offers did you submit for that client? Do you remember?
32.
32 offers?
Wow.
32. Do you remember that? Exactly?
Hell yeah, because I was 32. Dude. Like, I mean, imagine, like, you don't forget that because you like, imagine 30 times just constantly, like, having hope that maybe this is the one, and then you have to deliver the bad news of, like, hey, I'm sorry.
Hey,
and
but
like,
props to him for not giving up, right? Like, obviously,
yeah,
that was...
Yeah, no, thankfully...
Yeah.
I mean, he had his family was growing. He had a kid on the way and stuff. So, I mean, it was kind of like, hey, the time is now. And, they needed the space and they made it work. But thankfully, I was able to find him a home where, like, the deal was good. It was a good deal where he didn't have to, like, put down all his savings and stuff. Because here's the other part. I think a lot of people in that market just, I don't know, kind of got like this feeling of like extreme urgency of like, hey, my cousin is buying and my friend is buying, so I'm going to do it too. And I heard of some instances. I mean, I would never advise my clients to do this, but I heard of some instances of people paying over appraisal, like $50K. I think I heard one at like 80, $100K.
Or no limit, right?
Or
on the appraisal gap.
They were like, give me this house. I really wanted it. And I'm like, man, like that's so much risk because that is basically banking on the fact, like let's say it's a $500,000 home. If you put $50K on top of the appraised value of $500K, then you're buying it for $550. But how much time has to go by in order for your investment to level out? Like, even if you are going through appreciation, like let's say that the home is appreciating as it should, right? 3 or 4% a year. That means you got to be in that home for 3 or 4 years before you level it out. So it's like if you got to sell or you got to refinance before those 3 or 4 years, you're like already automatically in the negative because when you go to sell a house, even if you say, hey, my house is worth $550 and that's what you paid for it, years later, that's what you're selling it for. You got closing costs, you got commissions, you got a bunch of stuff still to pay. So like now you're actually paying out of pocket to sell your home. So technically, like if you're gonna try to recuperate your money back, what you paid into it, then you got to sell it almost at like $600,000, right? In that example, of course. Yeah. But I mean, that's insane. And now that the market has shifted, I've seen some properties and some of my clients have bought properties that we ended up negotiating it actually lower than what they paid for several years ago. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people like in this current market are very scared about prices dropping. But that's what a lot of people don't understand is the fact that prices were inflated so much, so fast that home was never worth that much money. That's what buyers could potentially pay for that home in that moment, right? Because they all wanted the lower interest rates. But just because somebody wants to pay that for something doesn't mean that specific home or that property is actually worth that amount of money. Because the appraisals, like we go off of appraisals and like the appraisals were telling you that this home is worth $500,000. You wanted to pay $550. Just because you want to pay $550 for it doesn't make it worth $550.
But then
from one day to another, right? Yeah. But it's a domino effect, of course, because after you have a couple of homes being sold for for that much, then now everybody in that same neighborhood or in that area is going to list for what you sold it for. And so it just created this perception that homes were worth so much more than what they actually were worth. And it happened so fast. Like I remember even like new builds, I kid you not, I was getting like emails from from builders. They were increasing the prices at some point, like by $10,000 every
home.
week.
Every home that's sold, they would increase it.
Yeah.
Every time a house would sell, they would use it as a comp and they would push up the rest of the sales.
Even if it didn't sell, even if it just
Not
under
everybody,
contract.
obviously, but that's what we saw so often.
One would go under contract for 440, the next house would be 445 and 450.
Well, and that's if you got that's if you even had the chance to buy a new build. You know, because that was the thing is, you remember those lines? Real quick to touch on something you said right now. You said I hated that market, and the thing is, as a seller, you love that market, right?
Yeah,
but as a buyer, and that's who we work with a lot of, especially with first-time home buyers, that we don't have $100,000 to put down. We didn't have that, so that was very, very tough to navigate through that market. So when we said we hated the market, we didn't. Obviously for our sellers, they appreciated it greatly. They really did. But the thing is that I think that there is a silver lining on the buy side of things, that for the people that did overpaid. That's what it was. That was the market. We had appraisals in at 500, like you said, and they were paying 525, 550 because that's the market that they were competing. But I think the silver lining is that statistically over time, real estate has always gone up in value, right? Mm-hmm. It's a long-term play. And I think what makes that blow a little, softens the blow a bit, is lower interest rates. Dude, what's your interest rate on your house?
Can I say that here?
No. Oh, yes. Yeah. What's your interest rate?
No, I got a 2.375% right. Yeah. And
I have a 2.99 on my rental.
And I got lucky too. I only paid $5,000 over asking on mine, on the house I bought. So I didn't have to go up a bunch either.
When did you buy it?
November of 2020. So even then, like I feel like the properties were still appreciating after I bought my home. And so right now I still have a lot of equity, even though the market's kind of settled a little bit since then. I think it depends when you bought, because if you bought kind of end of 2021, early 2022, right before the rates shot up, that's when it was tough. That's when like you probably didn't see your investment coming back, right? Like
because they paid right at the top of the market.
And then
we even had a situation, where we were fixing up 3 different properties. And the market literally shifted. I think it was, what was it, May of 22 or May of 23? Either way, the 3 properties ended up selling for way under what we thought they were going to sell for. Because it takes time. Obviously, you do fix and flips. At that time, we had 3 of them going at the same time. It took a while to really get through them and to get them sold, and it was because of the change in the market.
I think rates were still in the 3s, like at the beginning of 22.
Yes.
And then by May, they were like 6s, almost 7, right? Like they jumped up. They skyrocketed, and that affected a lot.
There's a lot of drastic changes for sure. Yeah, and I think to the point that you just made it, like, yes, it was great for sellers, but even for my sellers too, right? Like if you put your house for sale and you get flooded with 30 offers in 2 days, you're going to choose one offer, but then you got to say no to 29 of them. Mm-hmm. And that's hard too, right? Because it was so competitive where, I don't know if you guys saw it, but I received some on my listings love letters, right? Like just people were like, hey, please, this is a family and, this is their situation. And it's like, you can't help but feel for them. And it sucks because I think as a seller, right, you want to do what's right and maybe give it to a family that maybe needs it more than another family. But the ones winning were literally the ones that had money stashed in the bank. So anybody like we're talking about right now, like a CHAFA program buyer, unfortunately, your options were so limited, And so that piece of it, I also think, just in general, it was a crazy, crazy market. And it took a couple months, I think, for people to like really grasp on what was going on. Because I remember the rates dropped. And I remember in the time I was like trying to push that out, like, hey, the rates are, super, super low. And I think it's just whenever there's a change, it takes time for the market to accept it or to understand it, right? Because I remember rates, if you got it like a 2%, the 2% was literally around maybe a month, maybe less than that, right? Yeah. So it's like if you didn't act in that moment and purchase your home or refi or did whatever you had to do, like the rates weren't in the 2% for that long, right? Like it's like they dropped and then they started going back up. So I think, most people, if they see something like a rate drop, like I'm sure they heard it from family or the news or whatever, and then it takes some time for them to be like, oh, do I want to do this? And I think by the time most people understood what was going on, it just became like a race for.
Well, and the thing is, I feel like you
couldn't
even sometimes you would like a home and you couldn't really think about it. You have to be like, okay, well, we have to make an offer now because it can sell, and then by the end of the day. And some people, unfortunately, I feel like there was probably a lot of people who even kind of settled with whatever they could get, right? But I feel like the market, but on the investment side of things, like if the home kept appreciating, they got their money back, and then eventually maybe they got the home they actually wanted from the beginning, right? But yeah, there was a lot of that, dude, and it was definitely timing. I mean, who knows when? You never know when it's the perfect time, right?
I think people were just expecting for the market to keep doing what it was doing, and then for there to be a little bit more of a warning instead of like, hey, boom, rates are up, And I think that's kind of what it was. Is you wanted to get there because we know right now money's expensive. Well, I mean, statistically, it's not expensive over historically, right? But houses are more expensive. Right, so I pulled up right now a stat. I compared like 2022 pre-COVID, for example. Right, average median price in Denver was $475. Rates were 3% range, limited inventory. Now 2026, obviously, it says right here, limited inventory, but nothing like 2021, 2022. That's when we really had limited inventory. That was a crazy market. But then you go to 2026, and the average median price in Denver is $570 to $575. So I mean, that's $150,000 appreciation in 5 to 6 years average, right? Now, the good thing is that we still are seeing is that, like, right now, I think we look at a lot of those, because I'm sure you guys have had clients that call you and say, hey, I want to sell my house. And they bought during 2021, during 2022. And I would say probably right now, the majority of them do have a little bit of equity, but a lot of them don't have equity. They're upside down, right? So that's kind of prepping too, as really looking at it, and you compare what they have now versus what they want to buy. And in this market, obviously, I mean, yes, there's a lot more negotiation room, but prices are still up there. Yeah. You're still looking at houses that back in the day you can get for $425,000. Now there's $600,000. That's the big thing. So, but yeah, so rates. Obviously, we know that was something that changed now. Currently, right now, in the market that we're in right now, what are you guys seeing as far as rates? Or not, I guess not just rates, but market activity, days on market. That's something that I'm sure you've been seeing a lot on your... Well, you just told us about your Brighton listing. That one felt like 2021.
Kind of an outlier, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this market is weird. It's nothing that I've experienced, I feel like, since I started. It's different, but I do like it. I do like it because I feel like it's more balanced, right? And I think in this specific market, you have to be strategic with every deal you put together, whether it's for your seller or for your buyer. For buyers, you can negotiate for the most part. I don't want to say for every single home because that's not the case, right? Like I just had a listing that I listed on Friday afternoon, and then within 24 hours, it was gone. At list price, no concessions, nothing, right? And I think maybe, for instances like that, it just really depends on the home. Like, what does the home have to offer, right? Does it show well? Is it priced well? Is it on a corner lot? Or, there's a lot of things that go into the home. So, but I think I like it in that aspect, is that, like, if you're helping a buyer, you have to be strategic and really ask, like, what are you specifically looking for? Because that's a good thing right now, is that for buyers, you don't have to just, like you said earlier, like, you don't have to just settle for whatever's out there, whatever you get. You have options, and you have time to think about it.
Exactly.
Versus before, it was like, you see it, you got to make the decision right there and then. I don't know if you had to, but I had to write offers in the car.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I would actually write the offer before even showing the house. Like, I would write the offer just in case, just to have it ready, because I just wanted to have it ready to go, like, right there and then, Because from the moment that you drive from there to your house, and by the time you put the offer together, maybe it's gone.
We got 2 more offers. We got 3 more offers.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, now you have time to think about it, which is good for the most part. Not on every home, but for the most part. And for sellers, you have to be strategic too. Now, there is a lot of people sitting on equity, right? Like the people that bought between like 2021, 2022, compared to like all the homeowners, it's actually like a very small percentage. I forget exactly what it is, but I remember seeing it. I think on average, from the stats that we saw at the beginning of the year from that economic summit, it was like people in Colorado or homeowners in Colorado have a little bit more than 200,000 in equity.
On
That's
average.
the average, right? So I mean, but that also includes people that have been in their homes that they bought,
years.
in the 1990s, right? Like, of course they're gonna have a bunch of equity, but I like the balance right now. I wish the rates were a little bit more stable. I don't like the rate volatility right now because it just changes so much, especially with everything going on with politics and the war and this and that. It literally fluctuates like daily. I used to not really track rates as much. Now I actually have like an app and I look at it every morning before I start my day because I need to know, like, if I have a client approved that X amount, I need to know, like, what are the rates today? Does he have that purchase power or maybe not?
Did it go down?
Like if the
overnight?
rates went up, maybe instead of somebody who's approved at 500,000, maybe their purchase power is only 490 or 480. But if they went down, then vice versa. Like maybe we have a little bit more purchase power, and it just really depends on the day. I wish that was a little bit more stable, right? But I don't know if we're gonna see that stability in the next couple months. Hopefully by the end of the year, But
I do see opportunity there with that. With like the volatility. Yes, it sucks because we don't have anything that's stable, right? We're not like rates right now are 5.5 or they're 6%. But I have seen opportunities where I'm helping somebody. Let's say they're qualified for 475. And the houses that they really like are at 500 because we know how much that $25,000 gap makes such a big difference in the houses you're looking at, right? I've had clients where even like a $10,000 gap is a completely different type of home. So, I had a client about he and his family bought with a house with me in February, and we negotiated this deal in January, and something happened where the rates dropped for like a week, right? But we found out right at the very beginning of the week, and he was able to qualify for like 490. Right, so it was like that was a change. So I called the agent, and I was very upfront with them. This negotiation was 1 day negotiation from the morning to the nighttime when they finally signed our offer. But from the morning, I was like, "Look, man, I just want to know. Here's what we're doing. This is where we're at. This is the max that we can offer. We need these concessions. If this is something in your ballpark, let me know. We'd love to put it together. But if not, that's fine. We actually had a counter offer on another property." And the agent called the seller, explained everything, came back to us and said, "Hey, submit the offer." Thankfully, now they're living in that property. But that was an opportunity. We didn't have that. If we would have saw that house in December, we wouldn't have been able to buy it. Period, because we were $25,000 short. Yeah. But when you're $10,000 short, and keep in mind, we still got them to pay about $10,000 in closing costs. So really, it's like we dropped it $20,000. But that $20,000 was literally what helped us when the rates dropped, right? So that is, I guess, we're talking about current market right now. Yes, volatility does suck, but sometimes it can help. Sometimes it can bring up an opportunity. And I think that's just what it is. Like, especially real estate agents right now, we got to keep finding opportunities wherever we can take them, wherever we can get them, right? And that was one scenario where I did have, I was like, oh, man, like this worked out perfect, so.
What about new builds, though? New builds right now, I feel like that's where... New builds, yeah. Crazy. I think that's where people are getting the lower rates, right? I mean, sometimes you can find a home that's on the market and you can get enough seller concessions to buy your rate down to be in the 4s or whatever that looks like, right? But I think new builds, yeah. I mean, I've had a few clients that have gotten their interest rate locked at a 3.99 or a 4.5% or 4.99, right? So there's still a range there. But I think, a lot of people, especially people that bought in 2020, 2021 that have that 3% or 4% rate, it kind of softens the blow there too, right? Because then they go from maybe 3.5% rate to a 4.5% rate, and it's not as big of a jump, but they obviously they have equity on the home that they bought during COVID, and they use that as a down payment on the new build, and they're able to secure a low rate, so there's definitely still opportunities out there.
Yeah. No, there's opportunities for sure, and like that's what I like about this market, and for the fact that again you got to be strategic with every deal. helps you think outside the box. It's not just like a straight line, right? Because like when the market was saturated, it was like your offers all have to look the same. Like you have to have appraisal waiver, you have to close in
Inspection.
2 weeks.
Name your firstborn after the seller.
Yeah.
That's literally
It
what
almost got
was.
to that, you
It
know.
did.
It was just like every offer looks the same. Now it's like, okay, what's important for the buyer, what's important to the seller, and you can really get that going. And then now, like kind of like what I was talking to you about that commercial deal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the last year I closed 2 of those, and then this year I've closed that one commercial. But for sellers, that's also I think a good opportunity. Like I have I just closed on a commercial deal for 1.1 million, and we ended up doing a seller carry on that. And the reason why that's just so important, especially for like commercial, is if there was a couple things that benefited both parties in doing so, right? Like as a seller, if you're trying to sell your property, let's say, you know, whether it's residential or commercial, in terms of commercial, if you're going to sell it to somebody, it's either you're going to look for somebody who has the cash, right, to be able to buy it cash, which is going to be tough at that price point, but there is some people out there. Or you know, your buyer's going to come in more than likely with like an SBA loan or something like that, which we all know they're not like the easiest to get. Like there's a lot of hoops that you got to jump through to get an SBA loan. But if you have a buyer that has a good amount of down payment and your seller is willing to get that money later, like not all of it at once, the seller benefited for the fact that like he didn't receive all 1.1 million at once. So he saved a bunch of money in capital gains. Yeah. Like if he would have sold it for 1.1 million and got it all today, it was almost 300,000 that he was going to have to pay in capital gains. So why not just get a little bit more than half up front and then the rest in payments, and then he's going to actually end up making more at the end of
with the interest
loan because he's collecting the interest, right? And then we didn't have to go through an SBA loan. So it's like a super smooth, easy deal. And I think a lot of like residential homes that are sitting on the market, if you're a seller and you need the money right there and then yeah, you have to sell it to somebody who's going to bring some financing or cash, right? Those are the only options. But if you don't need all the money right there and then, and the buyer's able to bring a good amount of down payment, then just go about it that way. Because at the end of the day, there is risk, right? Of course, you're the bank. There's no bank involved collecting the monthly payments and stuff like that. But with the seller carry deal, you'll get a promissory note prepared by a lawyer, an attorney. And basically what that promissory note says is if the buyer doesn't pay you, you have the same right as any other bank to go and get basically foreclose on the house and you get it back. And you don't have to pay back the buyer for whatever they paid you already in down payment or closing costs or whatever. So it has a lot of benefits, right? And so deals like that are very rare. And I had not seen them in such a long time. Like my parents bought their first property like that. It was in 2017, I think, or 16, something like that.
Directly from the owner. They got
and so because they were renting it, and then one day the owners came and offered it to them, and my parents didn't have the way to get a loan at the moment, so they were like, "Hey, we'll sell it to you directly." And so the sellers became
the bank
for my parents, right? And my parents did everything they could, saved up, and they actually paid it off in 4 years. And then they came back, and then they offered the one right next door and did the same thing. So no banks, no nothing. It was just, you know, obviously we did the paperwork, the proper paperwork, so that my parents were protected as well as the seller. But deals like that are awesome. Like I just love the fact that they're even a possibility right now versus like in other markets they weren't. And the year before or last year, I closed a couple. One of them was a residential home, and then I closed on a triplex also that way. So I mean, you know, that's just another strategy. Not a lot of people don't really know about it because, again, they're rare for the main fact that if you're a seller, or if you're a homeowner and you want to put your house for sale, more than likely you need the money right there and then. right? Like that's the reality. Like you're not selling it just because, oh, I'm gonna sell it. I'm gonna see when they pay me back. So most people need the money right there and then because they're gonna go buy another property or whatever. So it can't work out in every instance. But there's also a lot of people that more than likely have properties on the market right now that would be okay with not getting all the money up front right now and potentially making that money in payments down the road and making more than what you're selling it for in the moment because you're collecting interest as well. But because people don't really know about these deals, they don't happen.
It's all about the seller being able to provide that, but it isn't. Well, the other thing there is if you don't qualify for traditional financing, like especially in commercial, that's kind of where I see a lot of these opportunities really come up. But like I got a call, I have a listing right now. It's a mixed use listing up here in East Denver, and the church called me and they said the same. They're asking the same thing, and right now we're weighing out the options, but unfortunately for this specific seller, it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. We are needing to get the money out, but they were offering like, hey, we'll put down $400,000 and we will finance over 15 years and we'll pay X amount in interest. And they were already throwing out terms like that, and the seller was very tempted. He's like, oh my goodness, like I can make X amount more money over the next 15 years if I just keep this. Not even the property itself, just be the bank. You know what I mean? So it's a good opportunity for buyers that may not be able to find or may not be able to qualify for a traditional loan, or they do qualify for a traditional loan, but again, it's all about the terms. That's all what it comes down to. So on the selling side, as a seller, it's another investment, another opportunity to invest your money, and that's how you're literally investing. You're prolonging your equity to make some interest on that money. You're going to make a lot more of that on that money than you leave it sitting in the bank. That's another thing too, right? But yeah, man, we're seeing a lot of those.
In a situation like that, if you were to make the payments out for a 15-year period, but then added a balloon payment at 3 years or something like that, like for the buyer, it's much easier for you to go to the bank and be like, look, I already own this property. I need to refinance it so I can pay back the loan that I got directly from the seller. It's much easier to get that loan versus like, hey, I don't have any property, but I want money so I can buy this property. Right? So it's much easier. It's just, again, trying to get creative with deals. And that's what I like right now. It's like as long as you get creative, you figure it out.
Have you done any loan assumptions? Have you helped any buyers with that? Or I did one. I want to say about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. It was a duplex in Commerce City, and it was built like a year prior, so it was newly built. And my client, he had the cash to pay the difference between what the sellers owed and what they wanted for it, right? And he still got an appraisal done. I mean, the appraisal was actually, I don't remember if there was an appraisal done on that one, but I know it wasn't a big difference between what they owed and what it was worth. So he paid that, and he got the rate that they had, right? And obviously, FHA loans are usually the ones that are assumable. I don't know. I haven't really seen many conventional loans that are assumable, but basically
VA too.
VA, yeah, VA. And basically what that is, let's say someone has a home that they bought with a 4% rate, 3 years ago, and if the home is worth $400K and they owe $300K, right? If a buyer comes in, they pay that $100,000 difference, and as long as they qualify for the loan, basically they just take over the seller's existing loan, and
they cover the difference.
Yeah, they cover that $100,000, and they pay any closing costs too, right? But this client, they ended up getting a duplex in Commerce City. It was like newly built. We still did our inspections. Everything else was pretty normal, but he got a lower rate than what it was at the time, right? Yeah. But no, I think that's kind of reminds me of that, right? Because if you have the capital, if you have the money to pay the difference, you can still get a low rate. And a lot of sellers are advertising this, right? Because that's another way of being strategic to try to get more buyers. If you have a loan that's assumable and you have a buyer that has the cash, then you can make something work there, and you still get your money. The buyer gets a lower rate, and it is a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. Especially, I think, in this market, like with the rates being where they're at, if you're an investor, looking for a duplex, and you're going to finance it and get, this high rate, maybe the rents don't give enough to pay the mortgage, or maybe they do barely cover the mortgage, which is still a good investment, but like you'd still want to have some kind of return, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're able to assume it and lock in a lower rate, and then now you're making a little bit more.
And maybe you live in it for a year or two, right? Yeah.
So, those That's great. I mean, I think, loan assumptions, I've only done 1, 2, but I would like to see more. And I think we're going to probably see more.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I think we're going to see more of those because there's a lot of people locked in with lower rates that, again, bought in 2021, 2022, and you can't go and duplicate that anymore. Even if you go and get a bunch of concessions or you pay down to buy down your rate, you can only buy it down so much. You're not going to get it from a 6 down to a 3. You know, you might get it down from a 6 to a 5, maybe 4.5, but that's going to be like probably the best you can do. So yeah, it's
have you guys
market.
Have you guys seen, talking about other opportunities too, like even on the investment side, have you guys done a lot of DSCR loans? Or a lot of buyers that use DSCR loans?
Yeah.
That's a really cool I actually met with the family this weekend, and their clients that I've sold them houses, they've probably purchased like 3 homes with me over the past 6-7 years, and they bought their son in because he wants to, well, I guess this is 2 different things, but his son wants to, or their son wants to purchase a 4-plex or triplex, live in one, rent the others, right? And that's kind of like what his investment strategy wants to use going forward. The first one, he's going to want to use CHAFA. He's going to want to use down payment because he is going to live there. He's going to meet the requirements, right? But the other thing too is with the DSCR loan. When I was explaining that to his parents, my clients, they were saying, "Hey, well, we have this equity in one of our properties here, and can we? Well, how can we access that money?" So I explained to them, going for a home equity line of credit. I can recommend them to a credit union. Usually, they're the ones that I've seen personally with my HELOCs that they have better rates. But pulling out that money, using the down payment, the 20-25%, and basically the biggest thing with that opportunity is that they don't go off of your income. They're not going to go off of what you make. They're not going to go off of any of that. They're not. It's based off of your credit score and that the rent can cover the payment itself. So they actually analyze the rents and the average in the area, and as long as it can cover, then they can finance on that property. So that's really cool. I think it opens the door more. I mean, obviously, yes, you still have to put a big down payment down. You have to save your pennies. You have to sell an investment, or you have to pull out equity, like my client is doing in this case. But it opens the door to, hey, you know what? Right now, this fourplex that was $1 million in 2023, right now they're selling for $799, for example, right? Jumping on something like that, long term, I mean, that's still a good investment. And again, it's not this. If you have some income issues or something like that, this isn't gonna hurt. It's just an opportunity. So
you go from owning 1 door to 4 doors too. That's cool.
Well, with the 4
in that case, yeah.
I've seen there's some opportunities, man. I back we're always comparing you, right? But right now, I've seen a lot of opportunities even like pop up like in Westminster. Yes, I was just looking at the list yesterday. So there was like Westminster. It was a fourplex for $799. There was another one for $825. Fourplexes, right? And the average rent I think per unit was like $1,300 per unit. So there's those opportunities. I think it was another fourplex that we saw in, was it Lakewood? No, Lakewood. We saw one in Lakewood, but that one was $895. That one was a little bit more up there. But again, there's opportunities, and that's just fourplexes. I've seen duplexes. Some opportunities have came up in the high fours.
Well, and you can also use the income, the potential rental income for the other properties to help you qualify too, right?
Yeah. So if you have multiple property, yeah. I mean that's the
like in that case. If you're saying they're each renting for $1,300 and there's 4 of them, I think that's $5,200. I'm doing math right
You're
now.
the human calculator. So.
I don't know. I'm not right now, but somewhere around there. Yeah, somewhere around there. And
chat.
But I think at that point, like if you use if you're living in one, but you use the rental income for the other 3 to help you qualify, then you don't even have to have that much income, right? Like you don't have to necessarily. It's not like qualifying for a single family home that's $800K because you have this other income that the bank's going to consider when they give you the loan.
Well, and I don't know exactly what the parameters. We'll have a guest on here, a couple lenders that are going to be joining on here that'll break it down more for us, and I think kind of really breaking down what the specifics are. But regardless, I guess based on everything we've talked about, there's still plenty of opportunity in real estate now. There's plenty of opportunity, whether you're purchasing to buy your first home, whether you're purchasing to move up and sell your house, or if you're purchasing an investment or commercial. So. Kind of obviously, there's a big realm. We covered a lot of different types of loans, a lot of different types of situations going on in the market. I always get asked this question. I don't know about you guys, and I don't even know how to answer it anymore, to be honest. But it's like, well, when do you think rates are going to drop, or when do you think prices are going to drop, or when is the market going to explode, or when are going to, I have no idea. I don't think anybody knows really what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, if it's going to happen. You know, we've seen different opinions from different sources where some people are saying, no, the market is stabilizing. This is where the market's going to stay. Rates are going to go drop, and then we're going to see a rise in price. And we have other people saying, nope, the market's going to pop. It's going to be this. It's going to be that. Yeah, I don't know how to explain that anymore or how to answer that question as confidently as I did before in previous markets. And it's because, again, we don't know what's happening. We don't know how it's happening, but we do know that right now what the opportunities are with the current market and the current rates. What do you guys say when you guys get those questions from clients? How do you answer that right now?
I mean, I think it's very tough for anybody, right? Like, to know exactly what's going to happen tomorrow, right? Even us being in the industry, as much as we are constantly in trainings and constantly getting updated and having these conversations among us and our other peers about what's going on. I mean, it's really hard for anybody to say, but what I will say, and what I do tell people whenever I get asked that question is, the right opportunities are only going to show up to you whenever you are ready, right? I think that's what it really boils down to. None of us can predict what's going to happen with the current war, what's going to happen with gas prices today or tomorrow, or what new political news we're going to get, right? Like, that's why it's so unstable and volatile at the moment, because there's no stability in the country or the world itself, right? Like, everything's off in a weird whack right now. But whenever you are ready, that is when your move should be, right? Like, you can't wait to time things perfectly. Like, if we all could time things perfectly, imagine how many homes we all would have bought in the past, right? Like, if we knew how much homes were going to appreciate, I'm sure everybody would have bought so many homes back in the day.
Any way to
but
do
back
it.
in the day, like, to be honest, 9 years in the industry, since I got into the industry, I've always been told by so many people, like, oh, this year's going to crash. How are you doing? How are things going with your business and this and that? 9 years later, it hasn't crashed, right? And are we going through like a little weird time right now? Yes. But the other point that I think that a lot of people don't understand or fully grasp on is that real estate is going to move regardless. Whether you want to make a move or not, somebody is going to make a move with real estate at all times, all the time. Like, there's a lot of stuff that happens, right? Like, there's a lot of stuff that happens. Like, real estate gets sold for many reasons, right? Like, I should have bought earlier than when I actually bought. But my reasoning for buying, even through a tough period of market, and I'm sure this was probably the same for you, is like, I had to buy because I had a little one on the way. Right? Like, I didn't plan for that. Like, I didn't plan like, oh, I'm going to buy during the toughest market in real estate. But that's just, I had to do it because that was my time for me to buy. And unfortunately, there's a lot of other things that happen, good and bad. But, there's deaths, unfortunately. There's people that split. There's, people that need more space because they're moving up, their family's growing. People that need to move down because they can't maintain, a 2-3 story home. Like, there's so many things that happen all the time that real estate is never going to stop moving. Whether the market says that it's the right time to sell or buy, doesn't really matter. What matters is like whenever you are ready to do it, and whenever you need it too, right? I mean, it's obviously a big investment, but it's played out amazingly for so many of our clients. Like, I have a client right now that, kind of similar to what you mentioned. He tells me these stories because, and he laughs about it now. He has 20 plus properties, right? Has been an investor for a long time. But out of those 20 plus properties that he has, there's some homes that he bought back in the day for 30, 50K. Mm-hmm. And he tells me that when he bought those back in the day, people would laugh at him. They were like, why are you investing in that? Like, it's not going to go anywhere and all that. And then now those specific homes that he paid 30, 50K for are worth 500K. Yeah. And I mean, back in the day, he probably was like the outlier, right? Like, he was probably the guy that like people were like, what is this guy doing?
Why is he buying so many houses?
You know, why is he buying so many houses? He doesn't even need them or whatever. And I mean, think about it. If you can buy a home for 30, 50K, I'm sure those rents were $200-$300 maybe, you know, and people would laugh at that. But now those same homes have been able to have allowed him to buy another 4 or 5 homes because he did that. He went and got DSCR loans on them, pulled the cash out, went and put down payments on another 4 or 5. Now he has 6 from one that he bought back in the day when people were telling him it was a dumb and crazy idea. So it's like, you know, I think about that and I'm like, maybe this is like my time. Like maybe this is like where, and not just for me, but, you know, for clients in general, like, I'm sure maybe a lot of people right now, if for investors, like if you are buying homes, some people will be like, "Why? What are you doing?" Right? But maybe 2-3 years down the road, when the homes that you bought for 400K are now worth 600, 700, whatever, people aren't going to be laughing then. So, you know, I think again, it just goes back down to the idea of like you buy, you sell when the right time is for you, right? Like no matter what's going on in the world, whatever, real estate is always going to move. And I don't say that just lightly because I'm trying to sell something, but I say it because the reason why I'm standing here today is literally because of real estate. Not because I worked in it, but even before that, like my family, when we got here in 2005, we got here with nothing. Like we lived in like a basement of a 4-plex. I kid you not, for like 2 or 3 years, all squished together in 2 bedrooms. There was 5 of us. And the only reason why my parents are in the position they're in now is because they bought that home. Because that seller approached them that one time and said, "Do you guys want to buy this from me?" Like they bought that for $80K, paid it off in 4 years, and then the sellers came back and offered the second one for $160. Right? In the moment, $160 for that second property seemed like a lot. But, you know, my parents thought it through and they're like, okay, well, as long as we come up with the down payment, the rent is going to pay the rest of it. Yep. Now that one is paid off. They got 2 rentals. Those rentals are not paying their dream home's mortgage and some. And, I mean, if they wanted to retire, they just have to basically make money for the bills type of thing, you know, because those 2 properties now take care of them. So it's like real estate is not a move where you make a lot of money like as soon as you buy or as soon as you sell it.
Oh, no.
Like it's a long-term investment, but it's a sure investment. Like if you look at the stats, there's not another investment that will return for sure, you know, but the real estate, it will. And you got to find the right opportunities, of course. And that's why we're here. But yeah, man, I just have a lot of love for real estate. I believe in it. That's why I'm in it, honestly, because I couldn't go and work at a, you know, car dealership and sell you a car that I don't believe is a good investment. Like I thought about it even before getting to real estate, and I'm like, what am I going to be selling?
Right.
You know, no credit, no nothing. Come, we got you. We'll give you a $80,000 truck.
Think about it. That's how the market used to be.
Man,
that's how the market
crazy.
used to be, dude. There was, I don't know if you guys were right. It's called NINA. I don't know if you guys ever know.
No income, no asset
verification loans.
Well,
Literally,
that's why
if you could find a
2008
mirror,
happened.
yeah, exactly. That's
why
exactly why 2008 happened. Yeah.
Yeah. And right now, like on that same point, a lot of people are like, man, like lenders ask for a bunch of documents and all that.
It's
And
too
they
much
do.
work. Yeah.
They do. But actually, I'm glad they do.
Absolutely.
Because in 2008, they didn't, or before 2008, they didn't do that. It was like, if you have 2 legs and you got somewhat of a credit score, we'll give you whatever you want, whether you could afford it or not. Now, there's all these requirements because they really want to make sure that if they're going to loan you this money, that you are going to be able to pay this money back. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, it's hard for us and it's hard for our clients because, yeah, they do ask for quite a bit of documentation, right? And depending on the client, their scenario, they might ask for more documents than for somebody else. And it can be like stressful and overwhelming in the moment, but at least you know that by the end of, like, whenever you do buy, that loan that you're getting is a loan that was pretty much vetted by multiple people to make sure that you were going to be able to pay that back, right? So, yeah.
So when I got in the industry, it was 2010 as well. 2011 is when I got licensed, but when I got in the industry, it was 2010. And I remember people back then, they were saying like, "Why are they asking me for all this stuff? Why do you need this? Why do you need this? Why do you need this?" and it was because the market completely adjusted. So I'm with Erik 100% on this. I think it's a matter of, we find out a little bit about we find out a lot more about our financials. That's a big thing too. Like how many people before they used to come in and try to get qualified versus how many actually get approved right now. It's a way less number. You have to really you have to really have your things in order. You have to have your finances in order, credit, everything like that. But it's really, and here's the thing too, is even if you are qualified for, let's say you're qualified for $600,000 and your mortgage payment's going to be $4,900, right? I think we also know at this day and age with how expensive everything else is people aren't always maxing out that number. They're not maxing it out because of budget, because they understand, they're like, no, you know what? The most I feel comfortable paying is $4,000. Okay, well, that'll get you $525. Okay, we stick to that number, because that's the thing too, is even in this market right now, payments are not low across the board. We know that, right? Payments are high, so it's also kind of like advising. And we've advised them. I mean, I've heard you guys talk to clients where you're like, hey, these are the payments. Are you comfortable with this? Is this something you're comfortable with? And I guess, earlier my question was, how do we reply about the market? But the question that you always get, right, is it a good time to buy? Is it a good time to buy? And the answer literally is, if you can afford it, absolutely. If it's what you need, absolutely. But if you can't, no, it's not the right time to buy. And it would, I would feel horrible putting somebody in a house knowing that they can't afford it, advising like, oh, it's a great time, right? Because that's the big thing, is that we put ourselves in our client situations, in our clients' shoes, and we really understand. We ask the questions to really find out and make sure that $4,900 payment isn't going to have you. What is it called? A house
broke or house poor or whatever.
House poor. That's the thing. If all your money is going towards your mortgage payment, I mean, that's, yes, you need a home for your family. Yes, you want to buy a home, but it's also about making sure that payments are a lot more nowadays. We got to be on top of what we want to do, what the goal here is, and if it's home ownership, making sure that we can afford to keep that home. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think, and to that point, like, back when the market was super crazy, right, 2021, 2022, there was so many people that turned around, like, not like intentionally, right, but like they asked me for my opinion, and I gave the honest opinion, which was like, maybe it's not the right time for you to buy. And then they came back now, years later. Now the market has shifted. They were getting a great deal. And like back then, people would probably be like, dude, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Why are you telling them not to buy right now, right? But like, I didn't, like, if I was in their shoes, I wouldn't have purchased, right? And so I think that's what I was, we always, I think as agents, kind of walk this like gray line, right? Because we don't get paid at all if we don't close a deal, right? We could be showing houses for months and all that. If we don't close, we don't get paid. But at the same time, like, we are looking after our client's best interest. And so in the moment, I was just like, man, like, I wouldn't pay $50K over asking price. I wouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. If you want to do it, that's your choice, but I wouldn't do it, right? So it's like, a lot of people did listen to me, thankfully, and they waited. And then now 2-3 years later, they purchased, and they're super grateful for it. And that's even like right now the case with listings. Like, I think the last 4 months, I'm not turned down, but just advise sellers like, hey, maybe this isn't the right time for you to sell, because you would have to pay out of pocket to sell. You wouldn't get any equity back. Like, wait a little bit, like, hold on a little bit, rent it out. If you can't, do the payment, whatever, rent it out, have it pay itself for another year or two, and then let's reevaluate then. And that's, I think that's where we like differentiate ourselves too. I don't know if every agent is like that. I would hope that they would be. But we're not. When people come to us to get advice, to get guidance, we're going to be upfront with you guys 100%. Whether that means us not getting a deal done or not, we're going to be honest about the situation from where we see it being in the profession, right? And sometimes, you got to just be honest, whether it kills a deal or kills whatever. But
absolutely,
I mean, we are here to look after our client's best interest, and we're always going to advise exactly on that.
It's the biggest purchase of somebody's life. That's not, I think in a lot of different sales industries, it's kind of like, oh, I sold them this pen. I sold them this shirt, or I sold them this shoe. They're going to buy another pair of shoes next month or next week. But with the house, this is most of the time, it is the most expensive purchase of their life, of our clients' lives.
Right.
And most of the time where they're not buying an investment, they're not looking at it even as an investment. They're like, I'm having a, like, perfect, that's cool. All three of us literally bought a house for the same reason. We found out we were going to be, fathers, right? And I joke about that year, but it's like that year changed my life, and I started looking at things like, oh my God, I got to get a house. I have to get a home. I did have an investment mindset behind it. What I mean by that is I bought a disgusting house. It was beat up, horrible, but it was bad.
It's the best opportunity.
It is
because of the house is the reason why you have the house you have now,
dude. But
beautiful home,
It built. Yeah. I mean, selling that one and then buying a house and then that. Now I have my rental and I have my home. It was because of that first home, 100%. Dude, I remember, my wife's going to hate me for telling me this, but dude, my wife did not see the house that we were going to buy until the inspection. And when I tell you my wife's face, when she was pregnant, so I bought the house in May. We probably went under contract around April-ish. Our baby was born in October. So she's walking through basically, long story short, we submitted an offer. They went with another offer. We found another property. We submitted an offer. We went under contract. The day that we did our inspection, we found out there was some structural movement. We decided to terminate the house. My wife was crying. I had explained the other house that we submitted the offer on as an opportunity. I said, hey, it's a big house. It's got 5 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 3 bathrooms in Lakewood, and it's $165,000. And she's like, oh, my God. I painted a really pretty picture. And that same day that we were going to terminate the other transaction, which I did send the termination, we got a call from the agent saying, hey, the sellers really liked you when you came and saw, because they were there during the showing. The sellers really liked you. They liked the fact that you were buying this as a home for your family. We went with another buyer's offer, and I think it was an investor, but they tried to terminate. So she's like, they want to go with the family. This has been in their family forever, and we want it to go to our family. So I was like, thank you very much for the opportunity. I'll sign it. They sent me I submitted an offer. They signed it under contract. Then comes inspection day. And I'm there at the inspection. My wife, she showed up a little bit after me. I think she was working or something, and she gets there, and she kind of looks at the house on the outside. It's a nice brick home, corner lot in Lakewood. And we walk inside, and she sees the red carpet in the kitchen and the yellow, these yellow countertops and these. It was. She kind of looks back at me, and she gives me one of those, we're going to talk about this
right now?
Are you serious?
Are you serious?
And I was
kidding?
Look at the potential. Look at the potential. But I mean, talking about investments, talking about that, that house, I bought it for $167,500 in 2014. I've probably put about $120,000 within it in like a let's see, I bought it in 2014. I sold it in 2021 actually, when we went to New York. Right, when I landed, I told you about this. Sorry. So in 2021, so from 2014 to 2021, $167,500 purchase price, $110,000 invested. I sold it for $535,000. Right, that was, for me, that's the best investment I've ever made in my life. That's 100% the best investment, and it was a home for us for about 3 years, or 4 years, and then 2018. I pulled out some money from that equity, and I purchased my second home. And I rented that house, and I think I made a month. It was like $1,200 a month. Wow. That's how much I was making. And it was great. And then time came to sell. And when I sold that property, I put some money down into my property I had then, but then I also paid off any debt that I had, and then I purchased my home that I live in now. That's the thing, is that I'm not saying I wouldn't have bought the house that I live in now without it, but I know it would not have been, I probably wouldn't have even thought about it if I wasn't in that position because of that investment that I made. You know what I mean? So talking about, taking advantage in the market and everything like that. I think back then somebody told me too that I was overpaying for the house, and my payments were like $1,300, and I was freaking out, dude. I was like, $1,300? Well, I'm not even rich. How am I going to do it? How am I going to make these payments, and how much is water? How much is electric? How much are diapers? But I made it through. Made it through 100%. And that's the thing, is everybody, people are in different chapters leading up to it, but I think it's just cool to really say, like, we don't just sell real estate. We don't just talk real estate. We do real estate. That's how our families have benefited from, not just obviously helping people. Thank God we get to help people every day, but also from our personal purchases, our personal investments. I bought my last house, the one that I'm living in right now, I bought that house in 24. Sorry, 24. And people were still saying at that time, like, oh, the market, why would you buy right now? The market's high, the market's high. I bought it because I saw an opportunity, but most likely, more than anything, I needed space. You know, we went from 1 kid to 4 kids, right? We have our twins, and then we have our 4th baby. You get
all at once.
Yeah.
All at once. Overnight.
All at once. One day.
Got shipped overnight.
Just Amazon order, and they were there. No, but, you know, all of a sudden, we needed way more space. And I was like, I told my wife, right before we bought this house, I was like, I want a house that's right in front of a school. I want a house that's got a good family area. We live, you know, we're neighbors up in Reunion, and
asking you shall receive. You literally got right in front of the school.
I'm across the street from the school, you know. So like in the mornings, the bell's at 7:45. We leave my house at 7:40 every morning, and we walk. And then right when we're walking in, the bell rings, and it's perfect. And they're never late. If they're late, and I'm across the street, we got a problem. You know,
cutting it pretty short there with 5 minutes. I don't know.
The 5 minutes is perfect.
One day might come when you're late, dude.
One
I don't know.
One day I might trip, and then it just messes everything up. No, but that's the thing, is that real estate has benefited us all so much, and our family so much, and it really, I love what it's done so far for my family, and I'm so excited to help other families have the opportunity to get there, but I'm also very excited for my family. I mean, the next house we purchase, you know, we've been talking about fix and flips for a while, dude. I'm gonna prick your brain on that, right? And that's something that I want to do, but also picking up rentals, you know, using you too with your house and the equity and everything I've built in. We have opportunities, guys, that wouldn't have happened if we didn't purchase our home.
Do you guys ever think about, because I mean, we all purchased for the same reason, like we all had a baby on the way. And I mean, I'm glad we all made it happen, right, for us in that specific moment. But do you guys ever think about, like, man, I wasted time, I should have purchased my first home.
I wasted time in 3rd grade.
Actually having, you know.
I think we were both. I mean, I know you were looking for like something downtown, and I was too. Like, I remember taking Eileen, my fiance, to go look at downtown condos before we bought the house. And yeah, I mean, obviously, you can always say, you know, I wish I would have done this, or I should have done this and all that. But I think everything happens the way it's supposed to, right? Like, but yeah, I mean, of course, like if I would have. I remember looking at a property for like $180,000. It was like a 1-bed, 1-bath condo that was it was pretty, you know, it was really affordable. And my payments, like I don't remember what the payments were going to be, but I remember thinking like, man, that's a little high, you know, back then. But I mean, yeah, of course, it would have been nice to have a few properties under my belt before buying the one that I'm in now. But I guess I don't regret it. You know, I think you kind of learn.
Not regret, because I mean, can't go back, right? But I think, I mean, I do think about that, because I do have kind of like what you mentioned earlier about your client coming in and his son wanting to like buy a 4-plex and stuff. That's like exactly what I wanted to do. Yep. Like that's what I had in my mind. And I guess I could have pulled the trigger on doing it sooner, but I was just, I don't know.
So you always had the investment mindset.
I always kind of had that. Like I was like, the first property that I buy is going to be a duplex or a triplex or a quadplex, because you could finance it with literally like no money down.
And you saw your parents, you know, pay off 2 homes.
I saw what they did, so I was like, hey, if I go down that route, if I start with even if duplex, like that duplex is going to pay my next home whenever I actually buy a home, right? Things didn't work out that way, but I mean, I think for because like what would you say for both of y'all? Like, who's like your youngest client?
I had an 18-year-old client.
I had
an 18-year-old client that she was working at Wendy's. And this was probably like in 2017, 2018. So it was earlier in my career, but she was 18 years old working at Wendy's. And I remember I told her, I took a picture with her, and I was like, I'm taking a picture with a little kid. Like, it felt like a little kid. Dude, she was, you know, and the thing with her was she went to high school, and then she graduated, and she worked for 1 year. But they were able to use that as a compensating factor. I mean,
and she bought it on her own, or was she like a co-signer?
No, she bought it on her own.
Wow.
And it was a small little condo, but it was still cool. And I'm still in contact with her. She still owns it, and I think she's almost, I don't know if she's paid it off, but she's very close to paying it. But it's just cool to, you know, that's what she wanted. She wanted her home, and what the cool thing is that it was for her family, for her mom and dad. Yeah. It wasn't just for her, you know. It was for her mom and dad, but to have an 18-year-old do that for her parents, that's
well, I was gonna say I had two brothers. One was 18, one was 19, and they bought the home they're in now. I think it was a condo, but it was a big condo. Like it had an upstairs and a basement, so it was for their family too. And since then, they've reached out a couple of times. I think they're wanting to buy something else in that same area. Like they're like, hey, we found our area. We want to stay here. We've seen a couple come up for sale, and same thing. I've been in contact with them. Now they're probably like 23 and 24 or something. So that was like 5 years ago.
They're still so young.
They're still so young, yeah. And they're like, hey, I want to get another one, and they have the money saved up, and they're like, I don't even have to move into that one, and so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of young people buying homes.
Mine is 19, but I thought that was great. I mean, and I also know like my cousin bought when she was 19 too, and kind of similar story, like just on her own, and then it was it was a house, but it was a small house, and then that one gave her enough for a bigger house, and then now she lives in a beautiful big home, right? But I mean, I think a lot of people, maybe when they're younger, they're not thinking about that.
No,
right? Because you're thinking about other things. Like in the moment, I was thinking like, I got to get through college, and then I got to set myself up in my career. And there's always going to be that fear, because I was also scared even when I first bought my home, like for our family, like I was like, am I going to be able to maintain this payment? Now I'm like super glad I have that payment, because compared to the payments now. But I'm like, man, if I would have just even bought like one before that one, like what a break I would have on my mortgage right now. You know what I mean? And so I always think about that aspect of it. It's like, if I would have just taken it seriously, because from the moment I could have, I started real estate, and then from the moment I could have to when I actually bought, it was like almost 5 years later from when I actually could have qualified.
So it's not a regret. It's more of like a what if that would have happened.
Like what if I would have started with a small condo or a duplex or something. If I would have started with the small condo, then the next purchase up would have been a townhome, and then from there a single family home,
and then duplex,
and then now it would have been something way bigger. You know what I mean? Or at least at least at the minimum, even if you're not buying something bigger or whatever, like at the minimum, if you bought a condo, now that condo is giving you $1,000 or $1,500 a month towards your mortgage now. Like, you don't have to be working so hard to pay your mortgage for a bigger home, because you already have half of it paid. With that, So that aspect, so much respect for those that start so young. Like, I'm like, man, I don't know what I was thinking. Like, I was what, 24?
I was trying to make it to the NBA, I failed.
You were just like 2 feet short.
I was only like a foot short.
You were very distracted, sir.
You're very distracted. Your focus wasn't there, Angel.
Right?
No, but that
really.
How old were you guys? You guys were 20, right? You guys were both 20.
I was 24 when
24?
I purchased.
But I had just turned 23.
You're 23.
Yeah, so see,
I was
better.
Oh yeah, so I was 23. I was 2014. Yeah, I was 23 years old. I did think about that like 3 years down the road, because I remember when I first sold the house in 2011. The first 4 houses I sold, the average price was $71,000. I looked at my spreadsheets like 3 days ago. I literally track
I need to do
all
that.
my sales from every year from the beginning. I have every address I've ever sold. I have every price. I can get an average for every year, and it was $71,000. That there was a house on Robbins in Montbello. That was the second house I ever sold in my career. And this house, I sold it for $52,000. And it had 2 bedrooms upstairs, a bathroom. It's the typical like Montbello, like the 2-bed, 1-bath upstairs, and then downstairs. Usually, if they finish it, it's 2-bed, 1-bath.
Same square footage up and down.
Yep. And then sometimes they put like kitchens down there in that area. I've seen a lot of houses like that, right? But this specific one didn't have a finished basement, and we got it for $52,000. And it was a HUD home. So back then, it was a foreclosed property that had an FHA loan that the government took over because they didn't pay. That house sold for like $290,000 like 5 years later. And then I think it sold, whoever purchased that property sold it. I looked back and it sold again like 3 years ago for like $480,000. Like, that's insane. Like, so yes, I don't want to say it's regret, but I think it is regret. I think I would have loved to have bought something, even like at 20, 21, and then had something living there. And then at 23, bought the house that I bought that time. I would have had another property.
Yeah.
And because, and it was more affordable back then to do that kind of stuff. But we should definitely have an episode where we talk about like this type of opportunities as far as like building a portfolio and what's needed to build a portfolio. Because you mentioned like we didn't think about it back then, dude. I didn't think about it. And I was selling real estate. I didn't even think about it. My thing was like, oh, I'm selling real estate. Everything's there's time for everything. And then
how different was it when you were on the other side of the closing table for the
dude,
first time?
I remember shaking at the table. I was.
I forgot my signature. Like 2 pages in,
You're
I was like,
looking at your driver's license.
You're looking at the driver's license roll.
I was like, what's
forgot
my date
that
of birth?
squiggle.
What's the date today? Even though they have it right there.
They have it written down,
like in a big old
on a
letters,
sticky
like
note.
today.
You're like, son, right here, Eric. You're like, hey, how do you spell Ledezma? No,
Yeah.
it's nerve wracking, dude. It's the first time I ever bought a house. It was 4 years into my real estate career. I was nervous. So it's 23.
I think the nerves, whether you know real estate, whether you've worked in real estate, whatever, like they're always going to be like that. And I think that's one thing that when we do tell our clients, like, hey, how you doing, how you feeling, like we also felt that too when we purchased. Like we're not just because we work in it doesn't take that nervousness away or fear.
I remember
of,
those.
like, am I going to be able to pay and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Fear is there for all of us. Like I don't think there's one person that doesn't show up to a closing table somewhat nervous about like, am I doing the right move? Like you're always going to question that, right? Because it's a big investment, however you put it.
The sellers, they had a Great Dane that they brought to closing. I just remember the whole time I was petting the Great Dane, just like, all right, just kind of helped me calm my nerves and everything. But yeah, I remember being super nervous too. Like, just
petting a dog.
I'm just like petting the dog. I'm like, okay,
guys. Well,
so just before we wrap up, just quickly, what do you guys see the market doing moving forward? We'll go this way. Just give us your opinion based on what you're seeing right now, based on what all the classes that we take or things that you are experiencing with your own clients. How do you see the market playing out? Let's say at least for the rest of this year.
Even with the rate changes, even with everything that's going on politically, with the war, with everything, I see activity picking up right now. That's what I see. So if you are planning to purchase a property, I would recommend to reach out to somebody and start at least getting an idea of what that looks like. Reach out to us. We'd love to help you, but really just jumping on it, because this whole keep waiting thing, 2011 is when I got licensed, and I heard people say that back then. And it's if you need to buy a home, let's get you in front of the right lenders. Let's get you in front of the right properties to make sure that you see exactly what's out there. Don't make a decision just because you want to buy a home. But if you want to buy a home and you need to buy a home and you're able to purchase a home, at least it's worth the conversation. Again, you see it by seeing. But what I mean by seeing things heat up is a lot of new listings are going under contract quicker. And I have listings that have been sitting for 130, 150 days where all of a sudden we're getting calls of people that are interested in. Janeth on our team, she has a listing up in Greeley where it was on the market, I think, for 120 days. And they got 2 offers. Was it at or over asking?
on a random weekend? Or?
On a random weekend, 2 offers on the same day. And this was like a week ago. We were playing golf with my dad, and he's the one that saw that. He's like, oh, we got these offers. So I would just say, take into account, yes, everything you look into, do your own research, be behind there, but reach out to somebody, reach out to us who's actively in the market every day, who's really looking at what's going on right now, and just see if it is a good opportunity for you. Because you'd be surprised by the opportunities that are out there. Especially if your interest rate, if that's the thing that you want to really get down. Right now, new builds guys are insane. They are offering some crazy incentives. So again, opportunities there. If you feel comfortable with the payment, if you are wanting to buy, reach out for a conversation, because I don't really know if it keeps going like this. That means prices are going to be higher, right? So it would suck to pay more for a house and still have a high interest rate, right? So if you can beat it before the rush comes in, that's truly what I see based on the activity on my listings, based on the activities with my buyers, and based on the activities with my network with you, like what you just said with Brighton too, with the listing that you had up there. That's where that's my opinion right now of the market.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. For me, I would just say, I think this whole year, the rates are going to continue to be volatile. I mean, there's really not going to be any stability politically or around the world, I would say, at least for the coming year. Hopefully by the end of the year, of course. But I think rates are going to continue to move up and down. I think for the rest of the year, we're going to see a lot of great opportunities still, for people like first-time home buyers, investors. Right now is like a great time to pick up a bunch of properties for lower than you would in other markets and keep them for years to come. Sell them once the market turns better for sellers, But I think this whole year is opportunity. Like, that's what I'm going to say. It's opportunity. And again, like going back to what you mentioned about, reaching out and setting up a plan. Like when you come to us, if your goal is to buy something, don't come to us like a month before you want it to happen. Like even if we work super fast, like any deal takes at least 2 months, right? You're going to go through meeting with us, talking to the lender, getting pre-qualified. Just in those two things, you might, even if you work fast, you may be killed 2 weeks. Then another 2 weeks of searching. Then let's say we do submit an offer and gets accepted, and then to get it to closing, maybe another month. So you're about 2 months out from when things are actually going to happen if you wanted it to happen like right there and then. But most deals don't happen that way, right? Like most of the time, people reach out to us. We sit down with them. We set up a game plan. And the purchase doesn't actually happen until maybe 6 months down the road or a year down the road. And that's just the nature of the industry, Yep. So reach out to us. We don't charge anything for our consultations. Our lenders won't either. And it's just always good. Like if you're ready to go in the moment, you don't have to buy right now. Like you can wait and see what comes up in the market until the right home pops up for you. Usually when you get fully pre-approved, like your approval is going to live for 3 months at least. So as long as nothing else changed, right? Your credit score is still the same. You're still employed. You're still making, the money that you're making. Like the approval is not going to change. And to revive it is very easy. But at least that way, okay, I'm ready. But if you're not ready, right? As long as you start applying now, then you know what things you need to work on to be ready in the next month or 2 or 3 or 6, or whatever it is that looks like for you. But at least you have time to plan ahead for it. And maybe right now is not the time for you to buy or sell, but maybe it is later this year. And so if it is later this year, then at least you're ready with an approval and you're ready to go. And just again, the opportunity, right? For buyers, you're able to negotiate a bunch of stuff. For sellers, let's do, strategize and get your property listed accurately for the right price and have it show well. For investors, a bunch of opportunities right now. I'll tell you that, a bunch. Like, not every deal is going to work, but there's a lot of great opportunities. I have a bunch of investors picking up, commercial properties, picking up duplexes, triplexes, fix and flips. I mean, the opportunities are endless right now. And so, I would just say, things are going to continue to be unstable, and you're going to continue to hear a bunch of stories on the news. But if you want the facts, come to a professional, right? Like, come to a professional, and we'll tell you exactly from honesty what's going on in the market, and you make your decisions from there.
Yep.
I agree. No, I agree. I mean, I think you guys pretty much said everything. At this point, like, it is, I wish I had a crystal ball that could tell me where things are going to be by the end of the year. And but I agree, man. I think right now rates are going to go up, they're going to go down, they're going to go up, they're going to go down. And I think it just depends because of, especially the war. I think that's one of the biggest things that will kind of determine where rates go. Obviously, when COVID happened, right, like everybody thought, the real estate market's going to crash, and rates went down, and instead of crashing, it did the complete opposite, right? It just, everything went up. But I will say, between now and the end of the year, there could be a lot that can happen. It's just a matter of, like you said, finding the right opportunities, finding the right time, and if it is your time to buy, right? Because there are people who maybe it's not now, maybe it is in a year or in 2 years or at the end of the year, like you said, right? And it's just finding the right opportunities. If you have a need to buy and, your family's growing, like how we all kind of went through, or you just want to start investing, maybe you got some cash set aside, talk to us. We'll definitely, just meet with you guys. There's never any obligation to do anything. It's just obtaining information, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to just give you guys the info that you guys need. And at the end of the day, if it makes sense, it makes sense. If it doesn't, we can always touch base down the road again, right? But we'll see where things go. I have a good feeling about the market, especially long term, right? But we'll definitely see. I mean, I know even the last 2 weeks, rates just kind of started moving a lot more, right? But we'll see where things go. I do think if you want to make something happen, just reach out and we'll make sure that we take a look at it. Take a look at your situation, just see if it makes sense. But
well, that does it. Thank you so much for joining us for this second episode. If you stuck around this far, thank you for your support. And stay tuned for the next episodes to come.
Gracias a todos.
Thank you, guys.